If you've been thinking of getting the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor, this video is for you. I watched so many videos when I was thinking of buying this, and I thought I knew everything about it when I went to pick it up, but it turned out there were quite a few things I didn't expect. If you don't know what the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor is, it's this. The most useful thing on here is this scroll wheel. It's why we all get it. The buttons are really nice to have, and we'll go through that in a minute, but this scroll wheel just changes everything. If you hear noise in the background, they're tearing up the street. There's construction going on. Workers yelling stuff at each other. It seems to always happen just when you hit record for some reason. But I had a little bit of a tough time when I picked it up. This is what you want to see here, that it includes DaVinci Resolve. If you don't know already, when you buy this, generally you get the studio license with it. I think there might have been a period where they separated the two, but these days when you buy this, it should include the studio version. And that's where I had my first problem. I went to the camera shop, I bought it, I took it home. I started looking through the box and I couldn't find the DaVinci Resolve Studio activation anywhere. I looked and I looked, it just wasn't in there. I thought maybe it was stuck inside some of the papers that were in there or whatever. I couldn't find it at all, and I spent the whole night doing research and I couldn't find anything about it. Some of them, instead of a card, will come on a USB stick, and I didn't want to have that plugged in all the time. And that wasn't there anyways, so I just couldn't figure it out. I wrote to Blackmagic with the serial number from the Speed Editor to see if I could figure out what was going on. Should there be a studio license? Why is this happening? In the meantime, I went back to the camera shop the next day. They took it back and they gave me a new one. The day after I returned it, I got my reply from Blackmagic that said the unit I had originally did come with the studio license, but at that time they didn't put it in the box. So I guess there was a card that was supposed to be attached to the box, and somehow one went in one direction, the other one went somewhere else, and they just got separated. Anyways, I got this one. They made sure to show me that it had that sticker on it. And when I got back, everything was good. I was ready to go. So I opened up the box. I uninstalled the free version of DaVinci Resolve that I had been using. I don't think you actually had to do that, but I just wanted to get rid of it and start fresh. I did a backup of my database before upgrading, but I didn't need it. Everything just worked perfectly. But always do a backup of your database just in case. So it was really fast. It took maybe 15 minutes and I was ready to go. Now, one thing I noticed that was weird right off the bat is this USB-C cable. It's a good quality cable, it just plugs in weird. If you plug it into the Speed Editor and the computer in one direction, everything works fine. But if I take it and I flip it around and I put this end into the Speed Editor and this end into the computer, it doesn't go into the Mac Studio for some reason. I'm not sure if it's how the ports are made, but I never had problems plugging anything else in. This one just doesn't click in. It's weird. You can't tell just by looking at it, but I'm assuming the plastic is just a little bit too long on one of the ends. Maybe it's something that happens on all of these cables. If you have the same issue, let me know in the comments so I'll know I'm not alone. Anyways, it's not a big deal. It's just that sometimes after plugging it in, I'll have to unplug it, switch it around, and plug it back in. Or maybe I'll just put a little label here with a C for the end that has to go into the computer. Wait, I should do that right now. I've got my label maker, C, print. Okay, another problem solved. Oh, and one thing a lot of people don't know, even those that have been using the Speed Editor for a long time, is that you don't actually need to have it plugged in. It works through Bluetooth. If you have the bigger DaVinci Resolve Editor keyboard, that one needs to be plugged in all the time, but this one doesn't. It's just really nice to have. You can start it up. You can see the light turns on, and I can start moving around right away. One thing I noticed when I plugged it in the first time is that the charge was at almost 0, and it took longer than I expected to charge the battery. I don't know what I was expecting, but it took a while, maybe 5 hours to get the battery from 0 to 100%. Now be prepared for this if you get a Speed Editor. It's intimidating the first time you use it. I know it doesn't look like much. It's just a little machine with a scroll wheel and a bunch of buttons that you're using on your keyboard already. But the first time you sit down, it's like you don't know what to do. It feels like you have to land an airplane and you're in the cockpit and you don't know what any of the buttons do. And it was weird because I'm not usually like that. Usually I pick up things pretty easily. And especially in this case, I had done so much research, I thought I'd be able to sit there and know exactly which buttons to press and what everything does. But it wasn't like that at all. So I was editing a video already when I got this, and I thought I'd try to work with it a little bit. And I was like, nope, I better put this away and just edit the old way for now, and I'll come back to it and figure out how it works. But then I decided to try it a little bit, just with a scroll wheel and one button, the split button. And I noticed I was starting to get a little bit of a feel for it. It just felt a little bit more natural, just with the scroll wheel and that one button. But then I decided to put that project aside for a little bit and start a brand new project where I didn't mind where I was cutting. I wanted to just practice cutting and deleting stuff with something that wasn't important. So I just did a cut, scrolled over, did another one, pressing the keys almost randomly, and I just kept doing that over and over, just to get a little bit of a feel of how the machine works. I wasn't sure if it would work at all for my style of editing because I do a lot of cuts and I do a lot of ums and ahs. I wanted to cut those out, but I wasn't sure if I could go specific enough to make those really precise cuts. But I worried for nothing because it turns out it's amazing for that. It was way easier than doing it with the trackpad I had been using because you can go back and forth with the scroll wheel and find the exact point where you want to make that cut. And then you can just do your split there instead of having to go and find that exact spot. It just took a lot longer when I went back and did it the old way. So as I kept practicing, at one point, something interesting happened. It just started to feel completely natural. I was moving the wheel around and I even noticed I was looking away, thinking of something else sometimes, and just doing the edits without thinking about it. It's almost like I developed muscle memory within minutes. Okay, let's talk about actually editing with this machine. One thing I noticed right away is the scroll wheel doesn't stop the playback automatically. Like if you're playing a clip, if you ever used one of those old VTR editors, you could be playing the video and then just turn the scroll wheel and it would just start rewinding right away and you could find your spot. But on this, if the clip is playing and you turn the scroll wheel, it won't do anything. You have to stop the playback, use the scroll wheel, and then start it up again. But it's not a big deal because you do have that start-stop spacebar type button. It's right next to the scroll wheel and it's pretty big, so it's easy to just press it. You can do it with two hands. One of them is hitting the start-stop button and the other one is using the scroll wheel. The other thing I noticed is that it does have an undo button, which I use constantly. You just double-click the escape key. But it doesn't have a redo button. I was hoping that pressing shift while I hit the undo key would work, but it doesn't. So you still have to use your keyboard for stuff like that. I tend to use my keyboard for redo and for zooming in and out because it doesn't have a button for that either. So if you want to zoom into your timeline, you'll have to use your keyboard. I use the plus and minus buttons. I have my speed editor in front of me, my keyboard right above it, and my trackpad on the right. Between those three devices, I can get all of my editing done really quickly. The wireless feature is really nice because I can put it aside while I'm doing my regular stuff and it's not on the desk at all. Then anytime I need to do a quick edit, I can just grab it, do what I need to do, and then put it back. It takes a few seconds. It's nice that you don't have to plug it in every time. It's just really useful to have if you're doing other things on your computer. I really would have liked an on-off button. You can turn it on by pressing any of the keys. I usually just hit the escape key a few times. I was hoping moving the scroll wheel would turn it on, but it doesn't. So you really have to press one of the buttons. But it doesn't have an off button. So the only way to preserve your battery life when you're not using it is to close DaVinci Resolve completely, and the speed editor will time out. You can go take your break or do whatever you need to do, and then just press one of the buttons to turn it back on when you need it again. The battery does last a long time though, so it's not a big deal if you leave it on for a while. Another thing that would be really nice is if we were able to map the keys. This section here doesn't do a whole lot for many of us. It would be great to have a start to playhead button or something like that. But really, those are minor things. I'm really happy with this thing. It makes me edit so much faster already. The scroll wheel and the whole unit just feel like quality, and I'm really happy to have bought this. Plus, having the studio version of DaVinci Resolve now is just amazing. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you can get out there and make more content.